Good evening. We're going to get started. Thank you for coming tonight. This is the August 31st meeting of the Amherst Charter Commission and our public hearing, formal public hearing that under the state statute on charter commissions we are required to have. We recognize this isn't the best time of year to have it, but this is the latest possible date we could do it, given when we voted the preliminary report out. So we appreciate you being here. There will also be another feedback session on next week on September 5th at 10 a.m. at the Jones Library for anybody, if you're talking to anybody who wished they were here and wanted to give us feedback, that'll be another opportunity. I'm Andy Church, I'm the chair of the Amherst Charter Commission, and we all have name tags here so you can see the rest of us. 16 months ago, the 9 of us came together to start this process. And I would say we had varying perspectives and experiences. We've got 2 former select board members, 2 former school committee members, 2 lawyers, 1 nonprofit and arts leader, 1 retired local journalist, and 1 high school civics teacher. We didn't know each other well, some of us, and after over 60 meetings, we do now. And I'm happy to say that I think we've modeled a process whereby we were able to discuss frankly and sometimes disagree strenuously and still come out liking each other and being civil. So I really appreciate my committee members, and it's been a very interesting and often rewarding experience. When we came into this, some of us wanted a mayor and a town council. Some of us wanted to keep town meeting. Some of us wanted to keep a professional town manager. So again, a good representation of the diversity of viewpoints in town. And instead of just going into our corners and fighting things out from the beginning, we decided to go out to the community and listen, and that's why we had so many meetings. We had a large number of listening sessions, and we pulled from those some values that guided our work. Those included citizen participation, a clear voice for Amherst, representativeness, both in terms of demographics and interests, effective, deliberative, and efficient structures, accountability and transparency, a culture of tolerance and respect, strategic and long-term planning, and avoidance of big money politics. So again, after 60 commission meetings, workshops, and feedback sessions, over 400 written submissions, 200 in-person responses, and a variety of emails, Facebook comments, and conversations at the supermarket, we have our preliminary proposal, which those of you who are Gazette subscribers received in the paper. There's more copies back there. And I would say that none of us got all that we wanted, but all of us contributed to the final product, whether we ended up voting for it or not. In my mind, it's a compromise, a middle ground that keeps the professional management that many of us value, gives us a legislative body that operates regularly and year-round, builds stronger constituent relationships between voters and their representatives, adds new ways for residents to participate and be heard, and improves communication about what we want our town to look like going forward. So for you, what we have here for you tonight for reference materials, there's the full charter with the introductory materials. There's a copy of just the introduction, which has the letter that I basically summarized just now, along with the preliminary charter at a glance, and other highlights of the preliminary charter, and an organizational chart that shows what the general relationships would be if this charter were to pass. There's also a voting map that shows our existing 10 precincts. In the proposal, they are paired in wards. So the council representatives would be elected by the ward representatives would be elected from each of these wards, which are pairs of the voting precincts. People would vote in their existing precinct locations. So those are the reference materials. There's also some advocacy material. There's a preliminary summary of the minority report from some of the members who chose not to support the final report, and I believe there's something from the pro-charter advocacy group as well. But these are the official materials from the Charter Commission. You have this as a reference. How many of you would say that you're familiar with the bare bones of what's in here, the basic thrust of this. So it looks like about half to 2/3. The rest of you are presumably not. So I'm going to very quickly whip through this, and then we're going to get to take your questions. How many of you are here to speak tonight? Let's count how many people we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So we'll figure there's 15 to 20 people. So if we have 3 minutes apiece, that will be plenty of time for anybody else to jump in and speak as well. So my colleagues reminded me that this is a hearing, not a talking, and so we should be hearing and not talking. So I will make this brief, but I do think it's worth just orienting you to what is in this summary of the charter. At a glance comparison, this shows sort of the key structural pieces of the current form of government. We've got a town manager, we've got a select board, and we've got town meeting currently. And then in the proposed form of government, we basically combine the roles of select board and town meeting into a representative town council, which would have 13 members, 3 at-large members elected townwide, and 10 ward councilors, 2 from each of the 5 wards around town. This group would meet at least monthly, year-round. It would exercise policy leadership and legislative powers and be able to set its own agenda for ongoing discussions. It passes bylaws, it votes on the budget like town meeting does. It hires and evaluates the town manager like the select board does. It sets priorities for the town manager, and it approves the town manager's appointments. So the town manager has most of the appointments, but the check and balance is that the council gets to approve them. So there's some elected folks who are providing a check on the appointed power. In terms of the town manager, we have a town manager currently that does day-to-day management. Most of that will not change. It's pretty much a similar, administering the daily operations, implementing town council policies, appointing department heads and most committee members, supervising municipal employees, coordinating the budget process, proposing a budget for town council to approve as opposed to town meeting to approve. There are some new duties indicated here it basically clarifies that the town manager is the CEO of the town and the council is like a board of directors, so they work together to run the town. We also have an annual state of the town address that we've put in, so once a year we take a chance to sort of say how's it going and what are we looking at going forward, and that is jointly delivered by the town manager and the town council president. We also have identified a community participation officer as a new role to encourage and help people get involved in the committees, in the various ward meetings and various things that we have here, the various participatory opportunities that we have. We wanted to make sure that people had some assistance in doing that. And that may be either a existing person who takes on this role, or it could be a new person, but that person is appointed by the town manager. So instead of the manager, select board, and town meeting, we have the town manager and town council. Other points here on the other highlights, we have the local elections are moved to November. So everybody knows that in November you go and vote, whether it's for the president, whether it's for the governor, or whether it's for the local elected officials. They'd be held in odd numbered years between the governor and presidential elections. We're also adding a commission to study and propose ways of implementing ranked choice voting, which is a way to ensure that whoever gets elected ends up with a majority vote supporting them. It may not be their first choice, but it's somebody, each person picks their first, second, third choice, and then those votes are tallied in such a way that once somebody has a majority of over 50%, then they're elected. So that's something that we all thought was a good idea. It's an interesting idea. It's democratic. It's done in Portland, Maine, and Cambridge, and also Portland, Oregon, and anyway, various places around the country. But we weren't quite ready to impose it. We thought that a commission should study it. In terms of resident participation, as I mentioned, that was one of our key values. And given that we're talking about getting, not having town meeting anymore, which is a way for people to, for 240 people to participate, we wanted to have sort of a variety of ways of people to participate and recognize that there are, beyond the 240 people in town meeting, there are 18,000 or so in town who participate through voting and through other means. So we were looking at various ways to have a range of participatory mechanisms. So the ward councilors are elected from each district, basically, from each pair of precincts, and they provide a new point of contact between residents and their government. They are expected to have ward meetings at least twice a year for two-way communication with their constituents. And in general, if you don't know who to call, you can call your ward counselor, and that is somebody who can advocate or point you in the right direction. We've also added annual public forums on the budget, on the master plan, and on the schools. Three of the biggest issues that face the town, things that we want to engage the entire townsfolk on and have regular opportunities for them to hear about what's going on and to provide input. I mentioned the community participation officer. That person would help promote participation and help people figure out if they want to run for office, if they want to join a committee, if they want to go to a ward meeting, what's happening and when and how do I get involved. We continue to have our many boards and committees. In some ways those have been competing with town meeting for residents' time, and without town meeting, that's another way for people to get involved, boards and committees. We also have new ways of people petitioning the legislature, forcing the council to meet on an issue, and residents can raise signatures and request a vote to veto town council decisions. So if they don't like what the town council is doing, they can democratically oppose and counter it. We are also having a commission to look at participatory budgeting, which they do in Worcester, and in Cambridge, right? And that's basically a citizen, a way for citizens to propose capital projects and to vote on them to get them into the budget and participate in some decision making about what the town, some projects that the town ought to take on that would be attractive to the citizens. In terms of planning and zoning, that's one area that I think we recognize was a challenge for a large group of people that meets semi-annually and deals with an awful lot of stuff in one night at a time. Town zoning issues are difficult. They're difficult no matter where you are. But we felt like too often zoning decisions are made without the broader context. And so we asked that the master plan, which is currently adopted by the planning board, also be adopted by the town council as a foundation for planning and zoning decisions. The planning board and the zoning board of appeals would be appointed, because these are controversial issues. We thought they should be, those people should be appointed by people who have to stand for election and be held accountable. So those are two appointments that are done by the town council, and so the town council will appoint the planning board and the zoning board of appeals. The other elected offices, school committee, library board of trustees, are basically the same, except that because of the mechanism of November elections and state regulations about overlapping with the presidential and gubernatorial elections, we have to have the term, to make it work, we have to have the terms be 2 years. That's something that we talked about a lot, but it was basically either a 2-year terms or 4-year terms, and when we looked around, most people do 2-year terms, and that does keep people closer to the electorate, so that's what we chose. Finally, in terms of finance and fiscal procedures, we're retaining the budget coordinating group, we're retaining the joint capital planning committee, and the finance committee will become a finance subcommittee of the town council, and that subcommittee may also include non-council members with financial expertise if they so desire. So then you've got the org chart and the map, and that's basically the overview, the 60,000 foot level overview of what we've done here. So you have these for reference. We're going to ask that if you'd like to speak, we would like to hear from you. We'd like to hear approximately 3 minutes apiece. I will be timing. We'll be taking notes, so we're preparing minutes that summarize what everybody says. So if you could identify who you are and then give us your statement, we appreciate it. So Is there a question about procedure? There's just somebody you're looking to speak.
I got bedtime coming up.
Okay. I'll recognize your hand as going up first, and then on. But should we just take? How do you want to do that? One from each side, sort of back and forth.
One from each side, front back.
Front back, front back. Yeah. Okay.
Point of order. Mr. Churchill. Mr. Churchill. Mr. Churchill.
Yes.
A point of order.
Okay.
Rather than to have a selection made by the chair, can you just go down through the line? So otherwise you're going to have a hard time keeping track of who's going to be putting up their hand at any one time. And it seems to me if you go down one side, the other side.
Okay, so I'll start in the back over there, and then I'll go over there, and I'll work my way forward.
Thank you.
Okay? So come on up, turn on the mic when you come up, and have a seat up here. And
Here, this first ready in the back. No? Okay. Great.
you'll need to turn that mic on. There's a switch up on top of it. Just pull it.
Testing, testing, testing.
Pull it toward you, and just
Yeah, I think
so the
it's
light
on.
goes on.
Testing?
There you go.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Johanna Newman. This is a speak from the heart. So as a busy citizen, I work full-time for a public interest advocacy organization. I have a preschooler and a second grader, and try to be, an engaged parent at the same time as feeling passionate about my work. Time is exceedingly valuable and hard to come by. I've lived in Amherst for 5 years, and the first time that I tried to make my voice heard as a citizen was last winter, when there was an issue that I cared about before town meeting. And I still remember sitting on my back porch on a Sunday afternoon after my husband said, "Johanna, you should really call your representatives." I was like, and I looked and I said, "Wait, there are 24 people here. This is going to take me hours to phone get these people." So I got on the phone, I worked the list, I left a bunch of messages. Majority of the people that I contacted, I never heard back from. And that was striking to me because we're a small town, and when I email Senator Warren or Senator Markey or the governor, I hear back from them. And when I call their office, there's somebody there who can meet my needs, serve me. I'm a constituent of theirs, and that concept of constituency is very real. And I feel like my experience in trying to make my voice heard as a citizen before my elected officials at town meeting, that concept of constituency felt totally absent. And I don't think it'll change, is the sad thing. So at this point, I personally, after reviewing the draft charter, I would rather have 13 counselors who are voted for by the public, who think of their voters as their constituency, and who expect to be held accountable by their constituents. And and then I just think the change from the town meeting to the council gets kind of the most oxygen in the room, but there are so many other awesome democratic principles reflected in this charter. Moving election day to November, I kind of think of election day as being in November. I think it'll increase voter participation, which is the core of democracy. There are other things that I like about the charter, but I'll stop there and just say that I, for one, am really excited about this, and I think it'll make it much easier for busy citizens like myself to engage. And I plan on taking some of my valuable time and actually campaigning for this charter over the course of the next 6 months, because I think it'll make our town a better place. Thanks.
Thank you. We're working our way across the back row, I think. Oh, you were referring to bedtime? All right, so we'll go to you, and then we'll work our way across.
I think she still has 15 minutes. Thank you, members of the commission. My name is Bernie Kubiak. You're familiar with me because I've sent you several missives, and I presume that you've actually read them. And thanks for taking the time. I'm a little bit of a local politics junkie. I've been a selectman, I've been an administrator, I've got formal education in public policy. And I want to congratulate you on what is a very fine document. A lot of work went into this, a lot of discussion, a lot of thought, and it shows. I think we've crafted a very good document. Is it perfect? No, but no system of government is perfect. So it's a little bit of reluctance that I'm going to ask you to consider one change. And that's to, there's always a but, isn't there? And that's to consider reducing the size of the council from 13 to 9. What this document does, what this charter does, is it really reflects the best and some very innovative approaches to municipal management for a community this size. Where it's a little bit of an outlier is in the size of the council. I think if you look at other towns, and the majority of towns our size, 2/3 of them have council manager forms of government, you're going to find that the council's a bit smaller, 7 or 9 members. In terms of the kind of dynamics that take place in the committee, a smaller size, the size of 9 would be with, I would say, with 5 ward and 4 general elected councilors would probably make for a better, more functional council. That's the only thing I'm going to offer in terms of a critique and suggestion for a change, because again, I think you've done a really fine piece of work, and I want to thank you very much. I know how much time and effort something like this takes, and congratulations. Thanks.
Thank you. Who's in the back row over here who wants to speak? Nice to see you again.
Ed Wilford. At the Tuesday meeting of the Charter Commission, they did a great job assiduously looking through this preliminary report and charter and fine-tuning it to make sure that it's all absolutely legal. For that, I congratulate them. However, this committee, this commission, has been a biased commission set up by those who want to change town government and to leave off with town meeting. I asked on Tuesday whether the minority report would be part of the general report, since there is a significant minority on the commission, and was told that this would have to be a private thing. I think...
No, that's not correct. It will be part of the final report.
That's not what I heard on Tuesday.
Well, I want to correct that misapprehension, because it's part of the state law that if there's a minority report, we will append it to the end of the final commission report, and it will be delivered as one unit to the select board and distributed as such.
Can I just clarify? I think it was the preliminary minority report that the majority here did not want to have presented to you and did not want to have posted on the front page of the commission website. And that's what we were talking about, the preliminary minority report at a glance.
Which was handed out at the meeting and will be on our website.
It is on the website.
Excellent.
Okay, but it's not on the front.
Speaking for town meeting, as opposed to the council, I see a step away from town meeting democracy toward an oligarchic town rule. And I'm sorry to see that. It's a tradition in New England. I think that what we have of town meeting can be bettered by asking the town meeting members to be more responsible, and perhaps also to fit in this in-between level of ward meetings or precinct meetings, which I think would make town meeting more in contact with the people in the different precincts and provide a middle ground between town meeting and the select board. So you sold my thunder, and that, but I'm glad to hear that the minority report will be part of the final report.
Yes.
Okay.
I do not like to see the possibility of the town of Amherst gradually turning into UMass City. And I'm afraid that this council government will be a step in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next in the back on this side? Anybody else in the back section? John?
Yes, John Fox, precinct 10. Pardon?
Look closer.
Speak up.
Okay. Good. I'm very much in favor of preserving town meeting. I've been in town meeting for much of the 33 years that Gretchen and I have been here, as has Gretchen. I've seen it improve. I think it has placed the town in remarkably good health, financially and otherwise. It's made some mistakes, but every government makes mistakes. And I think what we're talking about here essentially is the question of money and power. We spent 20 years in Washington, D.C., where money and power had an overwhelming influence. And I think you're looking at the difference between having 24 people from 10 different precincts fighting out over the issues and turning the role of our government over to 13 people, and zoning decisions made by 9. And in my experience as a lawyer representing real estate interests, and I don't speak ill of them, but I think the powerful interests in this town would like to see the whole Brewers block rezoned. I think we saw that come up before town meeting, and it was withdrawn. And I think if that's what you want, if you want more 1 East Pleasant Street's development, then you'd vote for this remarkable change from 254 to 13. I think the town meeting has improved enormously. It has improved so much that when the moderator of town meeting came before the special group that was meeting to consider changes in town meeting, he said that there were maybe 5 things that he considered, and he dismissed them all. He had no major changes in town meeting that he recommended, and I think he's a widely respected person in town. It's messy democracy. I think it works as well as a messy democracy can. I think we've enjoyed the participation across the board of citizens, and I hope that the voters of the town will see that the choice here is really between those who prefer a very small group of people making decisions for the entire town versus having this widely representative group make those decisions. And I think the most responsible thing for us is to move ahead and make improvements in town meeting where they seem required, but to vote against the Charter Commission proposal. Thank you very much.
Anybody else in the back over here, or we move it back across here? How about the middle over here? How about you?
Hi, my name is Carla Rash. I'm in Precinct 6, and this is kind of off the cuff. I didn't really have anything prepared, but I wanted to speak up as someone who is in favor of the charter. I grew up with the tradition of town meeting. I was raised in a small town of Massachusetts, an open town meeting, and in my mind, representative town meeting shares very little with open town meeting, and possibly name only, in the sense that I don't feel that the average voter has any say in what happens. There are 240 people that have a say in what happens, and as you've heard before, they're not responsive. They don't consider themselves to have a constituency. And I would argue there is only people that are holding any power are those 240.